Hey guys, the views and opinions expressed during this podcast episode are those of the co-hosts and guests and not their sponsoring institutions. Now, let's start the show. Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the Zoom platform in partnership with the Audio Wave Network studios inside the Stoudemire Wellness Hub, sponsored by the Ford Foundation. And we're also a content partner to bridgedetroit.com. And yes, we are still celebrating Black History Month, everybody. I am Orlando Bailey.
And I am Donna Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people on the east side of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. We drop a new episode every week, so be sure to turn on those notifications. Today, we are excited to welcome Kevin Davidson, who serves as the Director of Design and Fabrication at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History in Detroit. He served in various roles there for the last 40 years. He also happens to be the love of Donna's life. Kevin Davidson, welcome back to Authentically.
Sorry to that man, but I don't even know him.
The Kiki Palmer. I hate to say it. I don't know. I don't hope I sound ridiculous, but I don't know who this man is.
Who is he? We just had a wonderful Valentine's Day weekend.
Yes, we did.
Starting on Friday with our grandchildren, and they get along really well now, so that's exciting. And then we went out to dinner on Saturday. And
because you guys are a blended family. What an amazing example of like blending families. How's that going? It's fun.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. I mean, our family members all accept and like us being together, I think. And it was a journey for a little bit, because Kevin and I were both the same kind of parents. We were like these parents who gave all of ourselves to our children.
Right.
Yeah.
They're like, what? You are thinking about somebody other than me right now? I'm not first among equals.
Right.
Well, you know what? No. Am I lying, Kevin?
No, it's absolutely the truth. Absolutely the truth. It's
That's
like,
so funny.
We are the center of your life. What are you talking about? Get ready to hook up with somebody.
As A.J. Johnson said in the movie Baby Boy, directed by John Singleton, Mama gotta have a life too. Daddy gotta have a life.
And in this instance, so does Daddy.
That's right. That's right.
You want to know what's funny? I'm experiencing that in reverse. My mother is watching me navigate me being in the throes of a relationship where I'm just head over heels. And she's like, sooner or later, I'm gonna be the weakest link. I said, you better figure it out. You better figure it out.
It's so beautiful. I went to see my mother in the hospital today.
Mm-hmm.
And she says everything, my mother, she's dealing with some memory loss stuff. But how is Kevin? How is Kevin? Tell Kevin I love him every time I see her.
Yeah. And that's my girl.
And when I go to we visit Kevin's mother, she says, oh, come over here. And she always gives me a big hug. And, she's always glad to see me. And I'm her girl. And, it's so wonderful to have that. And Valentine's Day was special. It's unspecial because, we're still in the pandemic, even though we don't know we are. But it was still, we had a good time. And then, as you know, I worked on Monday. But Kevin cooked me not one, but 2 meals yesterday.
Right.
I mean, you setting the bar high for us, Kevin.
Hey, doing some Valentine's Day love. That's all.
I'm telling you,
I call
all the boyfriends, the husbands gonna be mad when their significant others listen to this and hear how you be showing out. Kevin be showing out, man.
Listen, I call her sweet baby. Every time you see that, you know who I'm talking about. So you know I gotta do right.
I love it. And just the love that you two share, it's still so palpable. It's like, I remember talking to you guys when you first got home from your honeymoon and the glow and the happiness and the smiles. Like, I wish y'all could see how they smiling from ear to ear, talking about, each other and their families. It's an amazing testament. Amazing testament. Love is love. I love it. All right, y'all. It is time for Hot Takes, where we run down some of the week's top headlines in the city of Detroit. For Hot Takes, Michigan GOP revives attempts to overhaul state election laws. This is by Olivia Lewis for Bridge Detroit. I'm not sure if our listeners, or if we covered this before, Donna. I think we may have, but there was a slate of I would say voter suppression bills sent to the governor's desk last fall that she vetoed, and she actually signed those vetoes at the NAACP Freedom Fund dinner. I don't know if you remember that last fall. And now what we are seeing in committee in the Michigan legislature, in the House, is that they are trying to figure out in the House Elections and Ethics Committee how to, overhaul state election laws yet again. And, a fair and thorough audit has been done of our election laws. And the determination continues to be that Michigan's election laws have already and are already fair. We have had determination that the 2020 presidential election was done in a fair way with minimal mishaps and mistakes in the state of Michigan. What I perceive this to be is, I'm gonna just call it what I see it as: coded racism, trying to be enshrined in policy to suppress and to discount specifically the Black vote that is coming out of the city of Detroit. I will never forget, and it is forever ingrained in my memory. I think I'm traumatized by it. The banging on the walls at the Central County Board after the 2020 presidential election, with folks, a white mob, as Bridge Detroit described it, yelling, "Stop the vote." We had challengers in the actual Central Counting Board saying, "Stop the steal," yelling to stop the steal, and intimidating our voter election volunteers. This is an outright assault on our democracy and the freedoms that we share in the state of Michigan to elect to vote absentee, the drop boxes that we are able to vote with, the whole gamut. And so the governor vetoed those bills with an explanation of, there's not money to pay for it. How are you going to pay for it? And the House Elections and Ethics Committee has still yet to address that question. And so it's really interesting to me as we head into the midterms that we are still having this conversation about fairness, this conversation about the legitimacy of the Black vote, not only in Detroit, but the Black vote in Baltimore, the Black vote in Philadelphia, the Black vote in Atlanta, and other major metropolises around the United States, and how state legislatures are in an outright assault on our election laws. Donna, what say you?
I think it's going to backfire, honestly. I think that if these bills go through, there's about 25-30% of the Detroit electorate that's going to vote regardless. I don't care how hard you make for me to vote, I'm voting, right? So to some extent, they're going to change the time frame and extend the time frame for people's signatures to be accepted if they're absentee voters, but we'll find a way around that. I strongly believe we will. But when people try to take something away from you that you take for granted, that makes you want it even more. Yeah. So I think that we will be able to mobilize people to go that extra mile. Back when I started voting, we didn't have online voting. We didn't have absentee ballots. We didn't have anything. We just went to the polls, right? And the polls were really long. So we are capable of voting without those conveniences. And if they want to make voting hard for us, that will, I think, make it easier for us to motivate people and understand just how valuable it is. If our votes didn't matter, they wouldn't try so hard to take them away. So we've got to try to fight back. I know there's also some bills that are pending, or there's some petitions, drives that are going out to try to change and counter that with other measures, as I recall. Yes. Where they're trying to have a voter referendum that would actually overrule whatever the
the governor vetoed.
Governor, well, the Republicans have their own voter referendum, but I'm hearing that there's another, and then other voter referendum, and so you may have to. It may be a constitutional crisis, but if this prevails, we will find a way to vote. When people knew they had to vote and they understood the value of it, they showed up.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of just how little regard these folks have for us. The fact that they don't want us to be able to influence elections. The fact that they understand that without Black people, Donald Trump would have won Michigan. And what does that say about Michigan? That you needed Black people to save us, but we always come through, right?
Or the nation. What does that say about the nation? You
Exactly.
need Black people to save the nation. The duality here is that there is an active attempt to suppress the vote, but I think we also need to think about policies and measures to protect the vote once it is cast, right? Because what we saw in 2020 was not a preemptive, outright preemptive measure to suppress the vote ahead of the election, but a measure to discount the votes that had been cast. And I think that is an important distinction when we talk about voter laws and when we talk about the John Lewis Voting Rights Act that can't get out of the House, right? It's exhausting, but we gotta keep at it, right?
We do, and we have to, continue fighting. We have to understand that we were never free. We've never really had our full citizenship rights granted to us. We've been fighting for full citizenship for 400 years, or full personhood for 400 years. We're gonna have to fight 400 more probably. But I think that we get comfortable and start thinking we're equal, everything is even. It is not. Our public policy is based on the concept of a white man being a full citizen and everybody else being a subset of that, whether it is a woman having to protect her reproductive rights, even though white women fight against Black people, but women still have to protect reproductive rights, are still fighting for equality. We never even passed an equal rights amendment, right? And so we're living in a nation where you still have discrimination against women on so many different levels, in science and wages and reproductive rights. And so we have that, but you also have Black people who have been here and were granted citizenship in the 15th Amendment. And then about 20 years later, they tried to retract it and say, well, it doesn't really, equality doesn't mean anything. And then you had separate but equal. So it was really surprising to me when I was doing some research to find out the first civil rights bill was not in 1963, which is what I knew about, but in 1865. So we've not 1865, 1876, I think, something like that. There was the first civil rights bill that was passed. And that civil rights bill granted full citizenship. And then it was reversed by another bill, and then was reversed by the courts, and they began chipping away at those rights. So in fact, I'm going to get the actual date when the first civil rights bill was passed. But I think that we have to understand that the Civil Rights Act did one thing. 1866, Civil Rights Act of 1866.
Wow. And what did it promise? What did it guarantee?
Equality of all citizens of the United States in the enjoyment of civil rights and immunities, that all things civil, social, political, all citizens without distinction of race or color should be equal. Wow. It was absolute. And then later what ended up happening is the United States said, well, the government can't discriminate, but the private sector can, because the government doesn't control the private sector. Kevin and I were joking the other day. I think it was Kevin who said they privatized racism.
That's not funny, but it's
true.
laughing, crying. But it's such a true statement.
It happens on golf courses every day, right now.
Right. And the prison systems and how much money is being made. Like who are the vendors? Who are the contractors? There's money being made in the private sector that is built off the the touchstone of racism. Even these roads, like this infrastructure bill that has passed, and the road fixes that are getting ready to happen, the resurfacing of I-375. Who doing that stuff? Who getting paid? Who the contractor? You know what I mean? Like, yes, they privatize.
Right. Absolutely. I love that so much. I was like, I would just start using that. They privatize racism, but racism was always private, right? Because it's always been about the interest of private individuals, private companies. That's the foundation of our nation, was benefiting private entities, whether it is a person who owns forced labor camps and is producing goods and services on forced labor camps, or it is a person who owns a factory where you're just underpaying people and putting them in dangerous conditions. So at any rate, this law to me is a reflection, or this effort is a reflection of something that we need to recognize and organize and be prepared to fight against. And we need to understand that we have to stand together on some things, and this is one of them.
Yeah, I think so. Hot takes. Cody Pershing will be rebuilt as a part of a $700 million Detroit school district proposal. All right, so DPSCD Superintendent Nikolai Vitti presented a facilities plan to the Detroit the Detroit Public School System Community District Board of Education. Did I get it right? That outlines, how the district wants to spend $700 million for facility upgrades, the renovations of some school buildings, the closing of some school buildings, but also rebuilding some school buildings where there is a demand. They call them high demand neighborhoods, where there is a higher demand for services, and in other neighborhoods where services are less in demand, sort of like closing some of those schools. Clark would be a school that will be phased out in this facilities plan that's on the east side. We always want to talk to our east side folks, right? Foch would be another one that will, which is already vacant, but figuring out how to reuse that building and or sell some of these buildings. Keep in mind that the Detroit Public School Community District received about $1.2 billion in ARPA funds, right? And so this is, or in federal funds. Yeah, I think it was ARPA money. This is $700 million in the pot. Met with some praise and some criticism on part of the school board. Sonia Mays wanted to see something more innovative and more cutting edge as it relates to the learning experience beyond the physical facilities that the schools are in. But the Chairwoman Harville praised Vitti's facilities plan, whom he contends that the district hasn't had a facilities plan in years. One of the things that is interesting to me is that it also lays out a plan to phase out buildings and to figure out how to sell buildings. DPS owns a lot of vacant buildings in the city of Detroit. They're one of the largest landowners in the city of Detroit, and a lot of the buildings that they own that are vacant are also terribly blighted. We also know that the sale of Cooley High School is pending what happens with this facilities plan. And we know that the nonprofit Life Remodeled is vying for the opportunity to buy Cooley High School and turn it into a replica of what they did with the Durfee School, this programmed and leased out space that is receiving mixed reviews, some community support and some folks against it. And it's, it's been a highly controversial thing. And so we're going to see a shift in, operable buildings, some rebuilds, some renos. What do y'all think?
Well, let me start with this. It's not going to be what happened with the Durfee Society, because with the Durfee Society, they purchased a building for about $1, and they forced kindergarten school students to be educated in the same school building as 12th graders. They decided it's only K through 12 school in the city of Detroit. Central is a K through 12 school.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe
Central High School?
Central, is it K through 12 or is it 6 through 12? Whatever it is, Central, they closed Durfee and they closed Durfee and they consolidated all of the grades in one school building.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that was a big part of the controversy, is how could you have little kids in the same school building as younger students? So I'm just going through because I want to make sure that I have the information correct.
Yeah, well, as you find the information, Ethan writes from Chalkbeat Detroit that during February, the rest of February and March, the district will conduct virtual community meeting sessions open initially to specific neighborhoods defined by their feeder patterns, so the feeder school patterns, as well as in-person community meetings open to the broader public. And the public will have the opportunity to hear in detail the physical conditions of these buildings, learn more about the district's recommendations, and provide feedback. We also know that, there was a water crisis in the DPS school buildings and kids couldn't drink from the water fountains in DPS. Mm-hmm. We also know that in some buildings, kids during the winter time had to keep their coats and things on, and, things of that sort. And so we know that there has been a need to address Detroit Public School Community District's facilities. But is this the best and highest use of $700 million? I
mean, why do you hire a superintendent? I say, well, if that's not the best, but you hire a superintendent to figure that stuff out.
Absolutely.
And unless you have something specific that you wanted to see, I'm not certain what you look at. Are we talking about more technology inside of schools? I mean, I think that the most important thing is teachers. The most important resource inside of a school is qualified teachers who love kids and take care of them. All of the rest of it is just bells and whistles. This is just my opinion. And so
can I read to you the quote from Sonia Mays? Because I think this is speaking to what you're saying. She said, and quote, "There's a sense that we should be conservative and responsible with these limited dollars, but I also believe this is our time to really push for something innovative. To me, the plan represents an opportunity to really reimagine in some form or fashion how we are providing teaching and learning."
But again, we've already raised Detroit public school teachers, so they are now earning more than most of the suburban peers. That was done by BD, and it was done with some of these ARPA dollars. You got to give them credit for that. I was so excited to celebrate that change. We are now attracting teachers back into the district. So when people talk about innovations in teaching and learning, they may be talking about distance learning. They may be talking about integrating some other types of things. And I think those things need to happen. On the other hand, simply putting computer labs in schools does not change that school culture. I've been inside of schools where students sit in front of a computer and the computer is just a prop on the desk because they haven't figured out how to integrate use of that kind of distance learning into the schools. We know the EAA was innovative and it got rid of teachers and used stuff. So I would like to know what innovation Sonia Mays wants to see inside of schools. I'm not convinced that's there. I think the idea of replacing Durfee and Cody and Pershing with a new school is extremely important. Mm-hmm. We know that the Cody School building has been in terrible condition with ceilings falling down and leaks inside the building. Our friend Kenyetta has talked about that at length because that's in her neighborhood. And so I think that, that's super important. I'm glad to see that. Probably the most exciting thing for me is for people who've known me for a long time that he wants to explore a public-private partnership to build a state-of-the-art athletic complex in the city.
Yeah.
That would include indoor and outdoor facilities for football, basketball, volleyball, soccer, baseball, track.
Come to the east side. Do it on the east side.
Wherever you do, we need an indoor track in the city of Detroit. Not having a practice track and a competition track puts us at a disadvantage. And students in Detroit have to travel to East Lansing or Ann Arbor or Ypsilanti to access indoor track facilities. And yet, we could be hosting these tournaments. I agree with him. It could be a revenue generator because you see a lot of school districts in the Grand Rapids area that are able to host different types of competitions because they have the facilities for it. And so to me, that is imaginative. And it's also a way to get our kids into great facilities doing works. When I went to Prince George's County, they have a Nike indoor sports complex that is amazing.
What?
And since then, I've wanted to see the same thing in Detroit. In Geneva, Ohio, they have one of the most amazing sports complexes there that you will ever see, built by an air conditioner. I can't even remember the name of this athletic complex, but it's absolutely amazing. They hold regional competitions there. They have college competitions. They have high school competitions, elementary competitions.
And everybody loves Detroit. Everyone loves coming here now. So
right. So let's create athletic facilities for our young people, state of the art. I love it. I just hope there's also a swimming pool, because so many of our young people don't have access to swimming.
But some of these old buildings, these old DPS buildings have swimming pools. How do we reactivate those?
Yeah, put the money. You got to put the money in. Hopefully that's in the facilities plan, but without a specific plan. Now, in terms of selling the school to what is it?
Life Remodel?
Life Remodel. I'm not in favor of selling the school to Life Remodel without a competitive bid process. I know there's at least one other organization that is attempting to purchase the school. For them to, I didn't like the way Life Remodel announced that they were going to purchase a school and do this plan without getting the right to purchase it. I think that that is just a dishonest way to try to force the hand of the superintendent or the board, and the board has to approve that.
Right.
I hear you.
So can I also name this? And I think this is unique to Detroit, or it may not be. You guys can correct me, but I think that Detroiters have a real affection for some of our built environment, the spaces that we've once inhabited, like some of these schools, right? What does it look like to grieve, the loss of some of these physical spaces, and to see some of these beautiful buildings in total disrepair, some of which would have to be demolished? I think about Jackson Middle School over there near ECN, Donna, and it's Jackson turned McNair, but it's closed and it's been vacant. But it was a beautiful building. It was a school that my mom went to, and every time she rides by, it's like there's this pensiveness. How do we grieve these buildings that were home to us and so many of our formative experiences?
I mean, school closures are a mess. The decision to close schools in Detroit helped depopulate the city as much as any other policy did. You close a school and you put blight right in the middle of the neighborhood in this school building. And the school building is no longer serving as the community center. Neighborhood schools no longer exist. Kids can't walk to school. And then we wonder why we have an attendance problem. We have 40% of households in Detroit don't have cars of their own, and we're not always providing bus transportation to schools. And then we wonder why kids are going to charter schools, because public schools stopped functioning as a neighborhood resource. And that was public policy that started in the early 2000s and has continued all through emergency management. I don't know if you remember when Robert Bob put 30 schools. Bob put 30 schools that he said were underperforming, and he said, we're going to sell these schools to charter school providers. Well, that's like GM selling off lines of cars to Ford. Who does that? Why are you arming the competition with your buildings? And the providers who ended up in the schools couldn't maintain them. That's the reason Hamilton Elementary, middle school ended up in such disrepair. You had good people, well-meaning people, thinking they knew what to do, and they didn't. They drove down the student population. If you look at what happened with Central is almost destroyed by the EAA. I mean, not Central, well, Central too. Southeastern was almost destroyed by the EAA. Yeah. But I want to go back to an earlier point about Central. It was Central Collegiate Academy is what it was going to be called. I don't know if it's still functioning in that way, but there was absolutely a plan to move elementary and middle school students from Durfee to Central. A big part of the outcry was the ridiculousness of putting all of those students in the same school building on the basis of some of the school is underutilized because the EAA again pushed kids out of the school into other schools. When I don't believe VD would allow for that, but I think that Life Remodeled has to answer for that if they want to gain community trust. Getting a school building for $1 and being part of a decision, even though they said that that decision was made before they offered to buy the school, I don't know anybody who believes it. Being part of a decision that would co-locate a kindergarten in the same school as a 12th grader is some of the policy. I think what VD is running up against is people who are still angry about some decisions, not being willing to trust the superintendent to make good decisions today.
Yeah.
But if you don't trust the superintendent, you have to get rid of them. If you have a better idea, and Sonia Mays may very well have a better idea for teaching and learning. She's not an educator, and it always scares me when non-educators come up with ideas or start pushing that agenda. I would really want to hear, what do principals say? What do teachers say? What are the people who are working in these school buildings saying about what's needed? Are their imaginations being tapped?
I love that point. Wow. That puts a great button on this conversation. And that's going to wrap up Hot Takes. If you have pieces that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. All right. So we have Kevin Davidson here from the Wright to talk to us about preserving and honoring Black history, as well as the legacy of Dr. Wright. Donna, since this is your love, the love of your life, I'm gonna let you lead this interview. Yes.
All right. So I told Kevin, I know where all the bodies are buried. So be afraid, be very afraid. No, Kevin, you started working at the Wright, and I just want to say there was a great interview that Orlando did on American Black Journal with Kevin that is still on the American Black Journal website, and I think it was just on another news station.
It was on One Detroit. We'll drop a link in the description of the podcast, so you guys.
So we'll drop a link, but be sure to watch that interview because they did a great job. And that's a visual interview. But Kevin, you started working at the Wright when you were how old?
I was actually 23.
Okay.
When I started. But I was on loan to the Wright Museum in 1980. So I was kind of working on and off for the Wright Museum. I was working for the Detroit Council of the Arts at the time. And that comes from a competition that I entered when I was in high school. And I won first, second, and third place in Best in Show. And so they gave me a scholarship to take art classes at the Pontiac Creative Arts Center. And that's where I met this gentleman who was head of the art department for the Detroit Public Schools. Mm-hmm. I can't remember his name right now, but he was the one who invited me to Detroit. I met with him in his office, and he was the one who arranged for me to get this job with the Detroit Council of the Arts. And so I worked there for about a year. And during that time, I was placed on loan. Some of that time I was placed on loan to the museum to work on an exhibit that was focused on Black insurance companies. And I was 20 at the time, 19 or 20. And, you know, it was out of that work that I was invited back to the museum to design an exhibit on Black voting rights and another one on Charles Drew by Dr. Wright.
So, you know, you went to Alabama State for your first year of college,
mm-hmm. Yes.
And then you transferred. Talk about that.
You know, it's interesting that these Omegas played such a pivotal role in my life. You know, when I was
about the Qs.
Yeah, the Qs, man. The Qs. They were trying to recruit me. I just wasn't.
What?
You know, I just wasn't.
Don't get in trouble now. Don't get in trouble.
Right, okay. But there were a number of them at Pontiac Northern High School where I was. And they were the ones who really arranged for me to go to Alabama State University. I mean, they pulled all the strings, and because of that, winning that competition like a couple of years in a row, I got, scholarship money from it was called the Thor Scholarship and some other sources. And so they set me up at Alabama State University. And it was Dr. Wright's alma mater as well, and so coming back to Detroit, it was like, when I started working at the museum, I was surrounded by them.
Right. But I'm trying to get you to say what happened when you left Alabama State. Where were you?
When I left Alabama State, I actually had a college professor down there who was a Cranbrook. He was a Cranbrook graduate. Mm-hmm. And he told me that I had no business being down there because Alabama State is basically producing and graduating art teachers. And, I needed to go on and do something greater. So he helped me to put my portfolio together so that I could go to CCS and present my portfolio and get accepted. And so I did that. And it was actually the second time I presented a portfolio. The first time I was rejected. So after, he worked with me and mentored me and, helped me to get the right pieces in that portfolio, I was accepted at CCS. And I started there in 1980.
Okay. Wow. Mm-hmm. Talk about, this is fascinating to me because I remember when the building on Warren, the current mm-hmm. edifice, opened. I was very, very young and I remember going. Mm-hmm. But you've been with the Wright at all three. Talk about this journey of, this moving from one place to the next and how the current edifice, which was for a long time the largest museum for African American history in the nation, now is second to the Smithsonian, but it was the largest for a long time. How that got built, because I think that story is fascinating.
It is.
Yeah, when I started with the museum over on the boulevard, we had a series of little rooms that we converted to gallery spaces, and we had this mobile unit that was sitting out front that had an exhibit on Black inventors in there. So it was my job to go in and refresh all of these gallery spaces and redo the mobile unit. Got some money from the Michigan Council for the Arts to redo the mobile unit. And so that was part of my job. But, you could really see and feel Dr. Wright's vision even then. I mean, when I was working there, there's no concept at that point that, we're going to move to a larger, grander facility. Right now, my
y'all on the boulevard.
Yeah, that's my picture of what the museum is. And then all of a sudden, I start seeing these drawings and these renderings of what the possibilities were, and then Dr. Wright aligned with Coleman Young, and they had some shared visions there. Coleman Young was the one who pulled together the resources to build the second museum, and so he made the land available and provided some city resources that helped out, with the architectural drawings and the building, contractors, and made that vision become a reality, and so
That's
I remember.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so my job was to go down to community and economic development every Friday and, represent the museum's interests down there. So we had these meetings and, that's where I really got a chance to see the blueprints and drawings. And it was so crazy because we constructed this second facility from the ground up. And even before, we cut that ribbon, to unveil and open that museum, they were already drawing up plans for the next one.
Now, who was drawing up those plans? And was this something that Dr. Wright envisioned or initiated?
Mm-hmm. It was, it's like I say, it was Dr. Wright's vision.
For the second museum?
Yeah, it was Dr. Wright's. Well, let me put it this way. Dr. Wright was more interested in seeing the second building become a reality. And he was really more interested in seeing that happen and, bring in, some resources to sustain that institution, and felt like the facility we are in now was a white elephant. That's how he referred to it. And, there was a bit of a conflict there between Dr. Wright and Coleman Young in terms of that vision, and
oh man, oh my gosh, this is rich.
Yeah. And so Dr. Wright, his plan was to establish a foundation. He brought his daughter in to run that, and they were going to generate the financial resources to sustain that second museum, and that's basically how he saw it. But Coleman Young saw a bigger vision,
a grander vision,
much grander.
I think that's fascinating that you were there and had been there all those years, and to witness Coleman Young and Dr. Wright commiserate. I also just want to make clear that, Kevin, you worked directly with Dr. Wright, the Detroit's baby deliverer. I want you to talk about your relationship with Dr. Wright.
Yeah.
And what it was like working for him, being mentored by him. Tell us about Dr. Wright, the man.
Yeah.
Dr. Wright was very focused and vision driven, mission driven. I mean, he was just intense, and he had so many different things going on because, he's an established obstetrician, gynecologist, and he's coming up with different techniques for delivering babies and all of that. So, he's an innovator in his field, but at the same time, he's a community activist, involved directly in the civil rights movement. When Martin Luther King and John Lewis and others walked across the Pettus Bridge on Bloody Sunday, Dr. Wright was there. He was one.
Oh my God, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, he was one of the attending physicians there.
Donna, did you know that?
Well, yeah.
Yes. And he was actually involved in ensuring that those who were walking across that bridge, including Martin Luther King, got the word to turn around and go back because they were trying to flank them and catch them off guard and attack them from both sides. And so he sent word, for them to turn around. And, here's the thing, he attended to the injuries of some of those individuals during that day. And the very next day, he got on a plane and came back to Detroit. And that's when he assembled this group of citizens here in the city to found the Museum of African American History here in Detroit. So our museum was founded under the fire of the civil rights movement. So, yeah.
I am blown away. I don't think I knew that. But what you are describing and what you are doing is telling the truth about our history.
Yes.
And I think there is an outright assault against truth telling of our history in an attempt to whitewash it. What role do you play, and what role does the museum play in telling our collective truths, like the truth you just shared? Because that's amazing.
And I've always been inspired by Dr. Wright's need and commitment and willingness to look at history and make sure that the truth is told as it relates to African Americans and how we got here, the discrimination against us, and the lies that were told, and the achievements and innovations that we have made. He had been really focused on ensuring that the truth was told about all of that. And he was interested largely in ensuring that African American children knew this history and understood this history because it is tied directly to who they are as individuals. And to know, your place here in this world and world history and in this society, and how you and your people have contributed and continue to contribute to the greatness of this nation and the world.
So one of the most controversial exhibits you've ever had, if not the most controversial exhibit, was the Monticello exhibit a couple of years ago. There were protests outside the building, and people thought you are really going to be highlighting this story about Thomas Jefferson, who was, obviously a child rapist, a slaver, just a terrible person in many ways, although he was a father of this country. What does that say about this country? Anyway, but when you went, you played a specific role in trying to, you couldn't eliminate the exhibit, but you played a specific role in trying to tell some truth even within those confines. Can you talk about that?
Yes, when I received word that this exhibit was coming and did a little research and, got a feel for what the contents was going to be, I traveled to the African American Museum in Dallas, Texas, where it was on display, on exhibit. And I was really disturbed by the way it was organized there. When you walked in, you saw, Thomas Jefferson front and center. And, there's this big photograph of Thomas Jefferson, and this big photograph of his number one slave. And, it really disturbed me. And this exhibit is going, it's traveling to African American museums under the premise that there's some sort of storyline and a focus on Sally Hemings. But yet I'm looking at this exhibit and, her story is buried way in the back somewhere in some room. And I was really disturbed by that. So I was determined that, when this exhibit came to our museum, I'm laying this thing out so that Thomas Jefferson is as far in the back as possible. And Sally Hemings and her story was going to take center stage in the front of the gallery, both galleries. So in our Chase gallery, you know, that was just totally dedicated to Sally Hemings and her family. And then in our AT&T gallery, which is the largest, we started it off with Sally Hemings. And, you know, she pretty much took up a good, the front half of that portion of the exhibit. So
I mean, what an amazing and creative way. And this is hard for a lot of us to decenter whiteness in our truth telling and acknowledging our history, right? It's I know that it can be difficult for us to do that, but what an amazing way to do that, Kevin, and to even have the forethought in mind to do it, because not everyone thinks like that.
That's true. And you know, Monticello, Smithsonian that's traveling this, they weren't happy with that, you know. They were not happy with that, you know, but every step of the way, you know, I made it clear to them, this is what we're going to do, you know, otherwise it doesn't make sense for us to have it here, you know, this is what we're going to do. But, you know, we've got to be committed to that. You know, we were talking earlier about, you know, our struggles and our fight that we've been fighting for 400 years. You know, we're formidable. And, you know, our everyday existence is part of the fight, you know, everything that we do, you know, and so organizing that exhibit the way I did is part of the fight, part of telling our story, telling Sally Hemings' story, you know, and telling the truth. We talked about, you know, Dr. Wright and the truth. And that's part of our mission, really, is to tell the truth.
Yeah.
The museum has a couple of exhibits. One of this I'm super excited about is the Tuskegee Airmen exhibit. And I know that was a process, but the Tuskegee, the museum is now housed inside of the Wright.
Yes.
So, you know, you don't have to go to Detroit Airport or whatever city airport to see it. You can go into the Wright. Can you talk about that, where it is and where it's going?
It's actually housed in this gallery that's called the Coleman Young Gallery within the museum on the main level. And it was initially an archives space. And so it was converted to gallery space. And it was going to be focused on community exhibitions. And so when we were approached by the Tuskegee Airmen Museum, and some of our board members got together and they just worked out this agreement to bring the collection that was at Fort Wayne as part of the historical museum. They basically shut that museum down. That was one of the locations for the Tuskegee Airmen Museum there on Fort Wayne. That was shut down, but the collection was still there. So we went over there, went through the collection and identified a number of great objects and special collections and letters and you know, uniforms and little kits that they used, and you know, basically the life of a Tuskegee Airman. You know, we brought it to our museum. The gallery space was a little smaller. I expanded the space to include a area that was sort of like originally a coat room and ticketing space, and just kind of broke through a double cinder block wall there to increase the footprint of the gallery space. And then, because as I said earlier, it was an archival space, you had all of this HVAC running through there, different components, because it was supposed to be a space that's maintained at 65 degrees or something like
papers and
yeah.
all of that stuff.
So,
yes.
And I wanted to hang planes in the ceiling, so we had to go through and remove all of that, the sprinkler system, and reconfigure that, and electrical, and it was a real challenge. But we got it done. And so now it's an exhibition there that tells the story of the Tuskegee Airmen. We've got some technology in there with the interactive iPads throughout, and
in the Young Gallery, right?
Yes,
and he was one of them, right?
Yes, and he was. Yes,
that was super cool.
He was actually a bomber pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the current King Tut exhibit. And I think we're celebrating the 100-year anniversary of some of these artifacts being excavated and found.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. 100 years ago, 1922.
Yeah.
When those artifacts were discovered in Tut's tomb. Excuse me. And so we brought this exhibition here about a decade ago. It was slightly different. It's under new ownership, the collection itself. And so the objects we're displaying this time are slightly different, but it's an opportunity for us to tell a story of King Tut and, display, these great works and commemorate this 100-year period of discovering these artifacts. And it's been extremely popular at this point. We've got a lot of people coming through to see it, and it's dealing with King Tut and his all the things that were found in his burial chamber. And that's in one gallery, just kind of focused there. And then the public, what we call the public King Tut, is in our larger gallery. So, that's Nefertiti and Tutankhamun, not just Tut, but his whole family lineage. And so you've got artifacts that are sculptures and chariots and that sort of thing throughout the public area. So it's a beautiful exhibition. We tapped into the ancient Egyptian color scheme and putting it together. So there's some symbolism there. The blue represents God and the heavens. The gold represents the land and the sun. And the red represents life and the royal lineage. So we managed to get that work in there. So it's a beautiful exhibit, and we want everybody to come out and see it.
So
and
that's the thing. We got to get people out to see this.
Right.
Well, I'm also excited about the work that you've been doing in the core exhibit. Now, have to be honest, I didn't see the core exhibit till you showed me the core exhibit when we started dating. I'm kind of embarrassed by that because my kids are like, "You ever seen that?" I've been there like 5 times, but I think schools did field trips there. And I just had not been to through the core exhibit. And it was stunning to me. I mean, so many things I learned in walking through there. Like, I had not known until then that when people were enslaved and kidnapped and brought from Mother Africa, a lot of times they were brought because of the skills they possessed.
Mm-hmm.
And those skills were used to help, really train white people how to do certain things and educate. It's never taught that way, right? It's always taught as though you're bringing these beasts of burden over here, and maybe they learn some things from the Native Americans, they learn from the slave master, and that's actually a reversal of what happened. Exactly. And so I learned that there. I walked through. It was really amazing to me. But you've been engaged in a lot of upgrades in that. Can you talk about those upgrades?
So we received funding from the Ford Motor Fund to go in and upgrade all of the technology in the core exhibit. And so, this exhibit opened in 2004, so it's old. And it is a very beautiful, immersive exhibition, but the technology was outdated, and I was running around, replacing DVD players with with consumer DVD players, and cabling was coming apart, and there was all kinds of technical problems going on with it. And so what we set out to do was totally upgrade that technology, and we created a intranet within the space. So, a self-contained intranet that is tied to all of the devices in the space. So all of the projectors, and we've got what are called these bright signs that deliver all of this video and audio in the space. And so we can take our laptops and sit, anywhere in the museum and download video to any of those, presentations in the area. One of the things we did was we had these e-stations, about 13 of them, that sat dormant since 2004. I mean, they never worked. And so now we have all of the I think there's 12 at this point, because we're going to convert one of those spaces to something else. But all of those e-stations are up and functioning. And so the visitors can come through, and they can they can touch those screens because they're interactive, and dig a little deeper into the story. All of the interactives that we have there, the map interactive, we had these theater lights that were tied to the interactive and projecting onto the large map of Africa, through these gobos. Those started going out. The interactive itself was going. So all that's been replaced, and there's a laser projector that actually projects on to this large map of Africa. We've installed these air touch buttons, so you don't actually have to touch anything. You just run your finger across the button and it automatically activates.
Because we fancy.
Right? Yes.
I love it. Yeah. I love
it. And there's an exciting exhibit that's can you talk about it, or is it too soon to talk about the exhibit that's planned for the space?
That's coming. Can you give us some news?
In that little space? Yeah, we're gonna hold off on that for a minute. Okay?
I'll just say there's so many good things to come. Before we leave this, I thought it was so interesting that the second building of the museum was built by Dr. Wright, and then that you guys moved to the new building, and that's when it became the Dr. Wright Museum of African American History. Is that true? Did the name change? It
was actually still the Museum of African American History when we moved in.
Right.
And so all of those people, who were delivered by Dr. Wright, thousands, and those people who have been connected with the museum and supported Dr. Wright over all these years, some on city council, they're everywhere. they got together and decided that it should be called the Charles H. Wright Museum.
I know that's right.
American history, and they made it happen.
I know that's right.
And then the crazy thing is that your alma mater moved into the second building.
Right. Center for Creative
connected.
Studies. Yep. Yeah, I graduated from there in the 80s, and it was really interesting. You know, they came in and bought that building and converted it to gallery space and classrooms and put some new technology in there. They took our parking lot, built another structure over there. So
yeah.
So what is your connection to the college now?
Right now, we're just basically looking to forge a partnership with CCS to bring in interns, to work with us on projects. And so there's some technology as it relates to some of the interactives we want to offer that these students have, and animation and just some of the cutting edge creative thinking that's going on. We're going to bring some of that in to the museum through our internship program. So that's what we're looking at working.
Playing it forward. So there's going to be some interns coming from the college that you're going to look at them and say, you know what? You should be an employee here.
I was in your position 40 years ago.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what, Kevin? It has been an absolute joy hearing about the legacy of Dr. Wright from one of his mentors and from someone who's been at the museum going on 40 plus years. I think we cannot stress enough, especially on this platform, how important it is for us to embrace radical truth telling when we talk about our history, and for us to urge our listeners to support the right. Go to the right, support it, bring your friends, bring it when you have visitors coming in from out of town, take them to the right. Let's create a buzz about this magnificent place in our city again, because it is, especially right now, especially during the month of February, we gotta do it.
Absolutely. And in line with that radical truth telling that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons we have the King Tut exhibit right now, and there's always been this effort to separate Egypt from Africa and suggest that King Tut was of some other ethnicity, but he was a young Black boy.
Sure was.
And we're telling the truth about it. That's why it's here. That's why it's at the Charles Wright Museum.
I love it.
Okay, that's right. Because that's true. We talk about this. Kevin has kind of educated me on this. When we look at North Africa, when we look at Egypt, people have migrated through places, and the composition of the population, in King Tut's day is certainly not the population that we have today.
Absolutely.
And that has to do with conquest. And we know what conquest looks like over here in these United States. Right. But, there are some conquerors coming from other places. So, I'm really excited about radical truth telling. I do want to say the Eastside Community Network has sponsored, and we're taking some of our neighbors to the museum on the 26th. So,
I want to go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you better call Angela and let her know and put your name on the list. But yeah, we're taking a guided tour. Really excited to do that. And I'm thinking one day we might want to host an Authentically Detroit episode inside the Wright. And
if we can do that,
exhibit and really talk about what it means and bring in some other museum staff so that we can help spread the word. It is an absolute gem inside of our community, and we are so proud. The fact that we have this museum and the fact that this is the largest city-sponsored African-American museum.
That's right.
The Smithsonian is a national museum. It's the largest city-sponsored African American museum in the United States speaks to the fact that we are the Blackest city in the United States. Black power started here.
Absolutely.
This is our community. This is us. And so I think we need to celebrate this as the outcome of having a Black mayor who is unafraid of telling radical truths and partnering with a Black man. And, it's amazing to me when you think about Coleman Young having a bigger vision for Dr. Wright's vision than he had on his own. And sometimes it's hard to relinquish your truth to somebody who can see a future you can't. But that museum is in a place, it's super exciting. It was designed by Black architects, Howard Sims, Garner. And I learned not too long ago that my brother-in-law, Carl Stafford, actually was the bond attorney on the deal to put it together. And so my people, I feel very connected to this. And all of that was happening. You had a Black bond attorney, Black architects. I hope we had Black builders, but I don't know, and a Black mayor who helped a Black man take his vision to the next place.
That's right. Absolutely.
I love it. Kevin Davidson, thank you so much for joining us here on Authentically Detroit.
Oh, it is my pleasure. It's been a joy.
All right. If you have topics that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Authentically Detroit, or you can send us an email. Just email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. It is time for shout outs. I got a couple shout outs, Donna, because I know you probably need an opportunity.
I have a couple.
Oh, okay. Okay. You want to go first or you want me to go?
No, you go.
All right. I would like to shout out Bishop J. Drew and Lady Karen the Clark Sheard. I had the distinct privilege and opportunity to interview them today as a part of the 1-year anniversary of the Black Church in Detroit series that I've been contributing on with American Black Journal at Detroit Public Television. And I had the opportunity to sit across from them and, really dialogue, number one, about the significance of the leadership of the International Church of God in Christ being here, based in Detroit, the largest majority Black city, and the leader of the largest African-American Pentecostal denomination in the world is here. I mean, there's so many things that we talked about, and the ups and downs of his ascent to leadership, but also losing his mother and father to COVID, and Lady Karen also suffering some losses. And so it was a really heartfelt conversation. We connected, we cried. And so that interview is going to air, is going to premiere this upcoming Tuesday on Detroit Public Television or PBS, wherever you are, at 7 p.m. For our hour-long special on the Black Church in Detroit.
That's awesome.
You got an Emmy last time you talked about the Black Church. Is a second Emmy in the making?
Well, no, I got an Emmy talking about the media and its coverage of Black Lives Matter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. But we'll, you know what's funny, Donna? I haven't thought about that. It's so funny when you think about, it's just the work is so amazing and the conversations are so rich and full that you're not thinking about winning an award. Like I was so present in what they had to say and their journey, the journey that they've been on. And now as, leaders of the largest Black Pentecostal denomination in the world, right here in the city of Detroit. And Karen Clark Sheard is a legend in her own right, from the famed Clark sisters. She talked a little bit about that in her storied solo career.
And their daughter.
But her also being in a coma and almost losing her life, and talking about the journey, with her husband sticking. But so watch the interview, y'all. The full interview. The full interview will be posted. The segment on the hour-long special will be about 10 minutes, but you really want to watch the entire interview. It was amazing, and I was so honored that they said yes.
That was my church for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Church of God in Christ. Yep.
Yeah.
And, just watching Bishop Sheard, his father, he used to be at our church a lot. And my pastor was the great Ronald Larry Griffin, superintendent.
Soup Griffin.
But his father was head of Church of God in Christ International for years, and he just ascended to the position that his father was in and took a seat there, which is so phenomenal to me.
It is. It is. Yeah, be sure to watch it. The other, I have one more shout out. I want to shout out Andre Perry, Dr. Andre Perry out of Brookings, who continues to just be on the front lines and conversing about the devaluation of Black assets in our cities. And also on the front lines of having conversations about what's owed to Black Americans in the form of reparations. And he ain't shy about it. And so we'll be hosting a forum featuring him tomorrow in partnership with Detroit Public Television at noon. That's Wednesday. So, but yeah, shout out to him. He's a friend to the show. He's been on a couple of times. Donna.
Okay. First of all, I want to shout out Black culture on display on Super Bowl Sunday. We were there.
That's right.
You know what? Oh my goodness.
I heard the Crip Walk made a national debut.
It did. And you know what? It was just,
yes, it did.
It was just so good from beginning to end. I truly enjoyed it. You know, I'd even missed Eminem really kneeling because Dr. Dre was playing the piano. And I was like, I don't understand what's happening here. So yeah, I mean, you know, we're such a talented people and we just have so much style, and I'm just so happy to sometimes have us showcase like that. So I want to shout out that. I want to shout out our friend and one of our colleagues, Yusuf Shakur. It's his birthday today, and this
happy birthday, Yusuf!
Happy birthday, Yusuf!
One of our habitual guests who makes us put the explicit warning on our podcast every time.
He lost his mother recently, and there's nothing like a mother, and there's nothing like losing one. And he is putting it all on display. And the way he honors his mother is just so respectful to her personhood, to her womanhood, and it just makes me love him even more just to see that happen. But I hate to see his pain. So it's his birthday, and I just want to honor him on his birthday. I want to honor Phil Jones and Kwaku Osei, who brought us lunch today for Pharmacy Foods.
Chef Phil.
Such a cool concept. Just wait until you hear what's going to happen with Pharmacy Foods and the Stoudemeyer. It's going to be amazing. You heard it here first. You heard it here.
We got to get Chef Phil on.
In the making. I'm telling you, I just see it all coming together. So yeah, hats off to our partners, and I want to honor the Kellogg Foundation because we just got a new grant from the Kellogg Foundation.
Congrats.
So I'm really excited.
And got money from Kellogg in a long time.
I know, right? And this is general operating support. You know, listen, all of the foundations who have decided to convert program grants to general operating support, let me bow down, saying we want to support your mission. We want to
bow down, just tip your hat.
Tip my hat, okay? I admire that. I appreciate that. Those of us who are working in this field appreciate the trust you have that we are going to make good use of the funds that you award us. So that's it.
All right. Well, we thank y'all so much for listening. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, we want you to catch the wave.